I wanted to give a bit of an update today on the details of the court attendance notices for the court case that Gillian Norman, or the criminal charges that she attempted to privately prosecute against Richard Moat, Adrian Brannock, Steve McSween and Mark Darwin in the Merbau local court, 28th of March 2017. Now, before I get into the actually what happened that day, what I'm going to say about what happened that day, I would say is unsubstantiated, simply for the fact that I was not there that day and there's nothing on paper to substantiate that to me. However, there were people there that day and their different perspectives has all come together in what I will present as what happened that day. So it is, from my perspective, unsubstantiated and substantiated from the perspective of those that actually experienced it or in some way, shape or form have confirmed different things that have gone on. Like the people that didn't show up that day that were scared off because they was, well, let's face it, when you've got children and someone starts making threats, you go and help someone out, it's going to be hard for you, we can start picking on you next. You've got to you've got to consider your kids. And a lot of people backed out of showing up as giving evidence that day because they were actually too scared to show up. So when I say that this whole story is from different perspectives of even people that didn't show up, there were people that did intend to show up but had legitimate reasons to fear showing up that day. So the following conglomerate of what happened that day comes from many different perspectives, as I said. And from mine, because I don't actually have a court document that actually says this went on, I'm presenting it as other people have given it to me and I've pictured it together. So what happened that day, what should have happened, is that Gillian Norman attend court to face, to have these four answer the allegations made against them, the criminal charges, and she was intending that there would be witnesses there that day. The witnesses didn't show up, and she was faced with heckling outside the court by these people who intimidated her. They yelled at her abuses inside the court, and just before the judge came out. And the judge didn't hear, of course, the childish behaviour, but we've seen Adrian Brannock's email, haven't we? We know what this toddler is capable of and how childish and immature he will behave, and what a bully he is too. He's just a down outright bully. He not only bullies other people and laughs and enjoys doing it, but he also gets other people to do that as well. And I know that there are, at the time this was going on, there were 21 unit holders as such in the community, and most of those on the left hand side didn't put 1 cent into it that they didn't get back out of it. And Gillian Norman, she paid $120,000, and this complaint here is about how they took her $90,000 mobile home, stole it off her and trashed it and got rid of it. And there are people that witnessed that actually confirm that, she was not the only one that had things stolen. In that day in court, it didn't go very well for Gillian Norman. First of all, the judge came out and she said that none of the witnesses had showed up, but she had evidence to present to the court, and she also had 8 other people that wanted to join on with their own offences into the action against these people and the alleged crimes that they've committed. So she's presented this to the judge and said, the witnesses haven't showed up, but I do have evidence here, and I also ask that, essentially the fact that she said there are 8 other people that want to add their own charges or description of offence to this, the judge should have said, yes, we will allow that. We will adjourn it to allow the other parties to put in their information, and then we will look at any evidence and any witnesses. So yes, we will give the opportunity to all those other 8 that have been would like to join in. We'll give them that opportunity. But instead, what happened that day is that the judge said, no, if you haven't got your witnesses here, you can't, I don't want to look at your evidence. She tried to submit, Gillian Norman tried to submit evidence to the court. The court refused it, then banged down the hammer and said dismissed. Dismissed. Did not hear any evidence, would not allow 8 other people who have got allegations of criminal offences against them, would not allow them to even be heard. I tell you that whoever the judge was that day, his ruling, his judgment to dismiss that without allowing 8 other people to have their due process to be heard, that's to me is an abuse of office and a clear prejudice that he came out with an intent to not even look at any evidence. What can a judge make a judgment on if he will not look at the evidence? What is he ruling on? Anything? No. He's only ruling on his own opinion, his own prejudgment. Because if he dismissed a case without looking at one scrap of evidence, he has a prejudgment. He's not going to hear any of it because he's already decided it's worthless. No, it is his legal obligation to hear that evidence first. So yes, that judge that day, you're on my list too. You have not fulfilled your judicial duty. You have completely come into that court with a prejudice. And as that, you should have dismissed yourself and referred the case on to someone who would actually look at the evidence before making a judgment. It's disgraceful behaviour. It's no wonder I can't find anything who'd want to put their name on making such a terrible decision, and clearly a prejudiced decision. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the next thing. Now, the next thing is actually more for the property in question. Is this property here, 3222 Kyogle Road. Now, the reason that it can't be built on is because it's a water catchment reserve. It's never going to be pulled out of that status to actually allow any more building than what's already on there. So essentially, I look at that side of the hill that we can look at on Google Earth, as that's been all bared up. I look at that as what the cattle would graze across. They'd be manuring it, enriching. Healthy grass is growing, they're eating that back. But because of the weight of them grazing across the land, it's compacted the soil. When it rains, that water just does that beautiful clean runoff straight down, as it should, the water catchment area straight down into the river, and fills it up with this beautiful clean water. And that's the whole purpose. But the thing is that what they've done has had an environmental impact. They've bared up the soil, and the water catchment area, when the rain is coming down now, instead of all that beautiful fresh water running down into the river, you've got water particles. You're essentially washing mud into a pure water source and contaminating it. So for those neighbours that are directly impacted by this, I would suggest that you contact council and put your concerns forward about the environmental impact they're having up there and the damage they're doing to the water catchment area. This is a serious concern, and it's not only a concern just for the neighbours directly involved, but the river itself is for everybody. This is them polluting a major source of fresh water that many, many, many people rely on for many different reasons. So it is pretty much your responsibility to report that pollution to the council and ensure that that damage is repaired, that it is monitored until that water catchment area is restored and it's not washing pollutants and mud and other things that clog up the pristine water conditions of it from that location. Now, that's one thing that is most definitely an actionable thing by the community. The environmental impact concerns on the water catchment area is something that everyone can get involved in, and it is a main issue too. We all know this. But anyway, the next thing I'm going to get onto is a little bit about what's been going on down at the Mount Burrell Commercial District. Now, I heard the other day, and I know how this would be, you know, how far it is between surveys along some roads, and you get somewhere and the petrol pump doesn't work. It's like, are you serious? Do you know how far it is to the next place where I can get petrol? And then you think, oh, damn, I'm not going to make that. So even just not for the locals, but people travelling in the larger area, I know how important places like the general store at Mount Burrell are, not only for that, quick fill up with petrol, but let me get a nice cool drink and maybe a snack to eat. Because I'm busy, I'm on the road, I'm not going to sit down at the Sphinx Rock Cafe today and take my time. But I'm also maybe not that busy that I might just duck into the fruit and veggie shop and just get some of the locally grown delights. You know, it's just so nice to know that you're eating something that, it comes from where you are. You feel more connected to it. Organic food. And then you jump in your car and off you go. So I know what it means when you call into the general store to do all that and you can't get petrol. Really stuffs up your day, doesn't it? But even more so if you're a local and you go there, you can't get petrol and you've got to travel 20, 30 k's out of your way to now fill up where you could have just done it a k or two down the road. So I've heard that the general store have had problems with the petrol pump there, and I can understand what a frustration it'll be to everybody because of that. And further to that, I've heard that the leaseholder of the general store has sold his lease and is getting out. I don't know if that is actually true or not. I haven't been able to confirm that. There's no changes lodged in things that I can see, and it would be very difficult to tell because people that operate under an ABN, pretty much everything they do is private. It's not ever made public, so you're never going to find it out, only unless someone has the records on it and you get to see them. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of unsubstantiated surmising, in that I know that the Sphinx Rock Cafe owners of the lease did not want to leave that business, but it became uncomfortable for them to be there, much like I suppose that the guy in the general store sold his lease because it became too uncomfortable to be there. As I've said before, some people to do business with, you don't want to deal with, so you walk away. But the interesting thing is the fruit and veggie shop. Now, the story we've heard from the community themselves about the Mount Burrell fruit and veggie shop is that they walked away from it because there was a death in the family. Well, I don't know how true that is, but when it's coming from somebody that has been known to play loose with the truth, let's look at the Mount Burrell fruit and veggie shop, also known as Burrell. Now, people on YouTube know that that's also Mark McMurtry, or Gunham Buddy Juckamara's other name. He uses that to troll with on YouTube and leave what he thinks is anonymous. So Mark McMurtry and his wife run the fruit and veggie shop. That there was a death in the family that they walked away from and didn't come back to. Well, when you find out that Mark McMurtry was in the fruit and veggie shop and they walked away from it because of a death in the family, I'm looking at the whole Mount Burrell commercial aspect that manages all those businesses. I'm looking at the paper side of it, who for all intensive purposes looks like they've been under receiver managership for several years now. This is something that needs to be clarified, and I will be. Tomorrow I will be conducting full searches on all of these companies involved and getting all the details up to date, who was involved, past directorships, shares, everything. And I'm going to bring all the search information that I already have up to date. And I'm mentioning that because in my next video I'm going to be talking about another point on the spear, Mark McMurtry. Yes, he's got a fairly big role in this too. We've been focusing on AB, but let's not forget about another important person that, well, as far as they claim themselves to be, a nightcap developer. There are two clearly identified nightcap developers, Adrian Brannock and Mark McMurtry. So we're going to peel back a little bit of Mark McMurtry in my next video. But just finishing on the Mount Burrell commercial area and the problems there too. I know that, yes, as I said, what I've heard about the people in the Sphinx Rock Cafe, for several years it has been difficult for them, I suppose you could say. But they've got a lease and they've got a good business, they love it, and they try to make the most of it. Now, an interesting aspect here too is that now that they are gone, Pete Evans is going to, apparently, set up his place in there. Now, I haven't, other than my video I've done on him in the last couple of days, I haven't mentioned much about Pete Evans. Even though, well, I haven't mentioned a lot about a lot of people that are going to come out one at a time, and we'll focus on them one at a time so that we can see how they fit into the bigger picture. Because as I said, at the time there were 21 unit holders that participated. Now these are more than 21 people, because one unit holder could represent a family, as in Sarah and Tamati Kirkwood's case, and 4 kids. So one representative unit lot shareholder vote at a particular time represents the values of a group of people, not just one. So there are a lot of players. They've got a lot of their own companies that link back into Nightcap Developments. Mark McMurtry is one of them. And another one I haven't even really mentioned too much is Derek Zillman. Now there are 3 important players that are connecting through Yadaki Capital and Constructions, 2 separate different companies, but both Yadaki. And it seems to bring into play Adrian Brennock, Mark McMurtry, and Derek Zillman. And they seem to be the spearhead of NCV Enterprises, which is the development umbrella that they're doing everything else under. And everything that does lead back to NCV, because when I say it's the umbrella, it's covering a lot of companies, connections and everything like that. So what we're going to do is pretty much take away that umbrella and see what it's covering. But that's it for this video. I didn't want to make it long. I'm sorry I made the last one so long. I just wanted to give you an update and to bring to the awareness of maybe people in the community that there is a water catchment concern specifically around this property, that each and every person that is affected by the river that runs past can make a valid complaint to the council about their concerns about pollution from damaged water reserve catchment areas. The soil's been bared up. We know what bare soil does. It slides straight off and into the river, and it's just filling it up with muck. It's killing everything in the river. I mean, I know what it was like down at Yukai. I used to go, and after I'd go down the shop, I'd grab my lunch and I'd go sit down right on the rocks and I'd watch the fish, and I'd just sit there and enjoy it. And I want to be able to see the fish, and as I'm sure I want you want to see through the water too. It does not need to be turned into muddy muck like what you see when you go through Lismore and you look over the bridge. We don't want it looking like that. So please, if you have a concern, voice that with the Tweed Council. And with that, I'm going to leave it on that one for today. Catch you on the next video.